I was running late to the engagement party, still wearing my casual business clothes after finishing a crisis meeting with another client. When I walked into the elegant country club, Richard Morrison's assistant introduced me as Lucy from the tech team helping with our systems. I didn't bother correcting her since I was there to congratulate his daughter. Stephanie Morrison took one look at my simple outfit and smirked. "Oh, just admin, how quaint." Her fiancé, Alexander, looked embarrassed and asked politely, "What exactly do you do?" I smiled, knowing that my answer would change everything. Before I tell you how one word completely destroyed her arrogance and changed everything at that party drop, a comment about the most satisfying moment, when someone underestimated you, hit that like button if you have ever been judged by your appearance and subscribe, because what happened next will make you believe in instant karma. Let me give you some context about who I really am and how I ended up in this situation. 8 years ago, I started Tech Solutions Inc. in my garage with nothing but a laptop and a dream. Today, my company generates $50 million in annual revenue and has become one of the most respected technology consulting firms in the country. But here's the thing about my leadership style that sets me apart from typical CEOs I believe in, working alongside my team, not above them. While most executives hide behind corner offices and formal hierarchies, I chose a different approach. My desk sits right in the middle of our open concept office, surrounded by developers, project managers, and support staff. Everyone calls me by my first name, and I make it a point to know every employee personally. I dress casually most days, preferring comfort over corporate fashion, which often leads people to mistake me for a regular employee rather than the founder and CEO. This hands-on approach extends to how I handle client relationships. Instead of sending subordinates to important meetings, I prefer to work directly with our clients. It builds trust, ensures quality control, and keeps me connected to the real challenges our customers face. That is exactly why I was personally overseeing the Morrison Industries contract, a 3-year deal worth over $3 million that would fund our expansion into international markets. Richard Morrison runs a traditional manufacturing company that desperately needed to modernize their technology infrastructure to stay competitive. He is an old-school businessman who appreciates straightforward communication and proven results. What he does not appreciate, as I would soon discover, is his daughter Stephanie's attitude toward people she considers beneath her social status. Stephanie Morrison is 27 years old and has never worked a day in her life. She grew up in luxury-attended private schools on her father's dime and recently got engaged to Alexander, an investment banker who is climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious firm. She spends her time shopping, planning social events, and judging anyone who does not meet her standards of wealth and status. The engagement party was being held at the most exclusive country club in town, complete with formal dress code and guest list full of wealthy business leaders. I had planned to attend after wrapping up an emergency meeting with another client whose system had crashed. By the time I arrived, the cocktail hour was already in full swing, and I was clearly underdressed compared to the other attendees who were wearing designer gowns and expensive suits. When Morrison's assistant introduced me as part of the tech team, I thought nothing of it. I was there to celebrate, not to network or impress anyone. But Stephanie immediately zeroed in on what she perceived as my low status. Her eyes scanned my outfit with obvious disdain, taking in my simple blouse, comfortable flats, and lack of expensive jewelry. In her mind, I was just another service provider who did not belong among her important guests. The first red flag should have been her immediate reaction to my presence. Instead of welcoming me or asking about our work with her father's company, she made a point of questioning why someone from the tech team was attending such an elegant family celebration. Her tone suggested that I had somehow crashed the party uninvited, rather than being personally invited by her father as a valued business partner. The evening started going downhill the moment Stephanie opened her mouth. Her first comment was about my inappropriate attire for such an elegant event. With a condescending smile that did not reach her eyes, she said, "I suppose different people have different standards when it comes to formal occasions." I tried to brush off the insult and redirect the conversation toward congratulating her on the engagement, but she was just getting started. As we moved toward the dining area, Stephanie made a point of commenting on various topics that highlighted what she saw as the difference between professional people and office workers. She talked about her recent vacation to Europe, her designer wedding dress shopping, and her plans for an elaborate honeymoon, all while making subtle digs about people who probably never travel beyond their home state and would not understand the finer things in life. When we were seated for dinner, I found myself at the head table with the Morrison family and their most important guests. It should have been an honor, but Stephanie turned it into another opportunity for humiliation. She loudly asked her father, "Daddy, why is the admin girl sitting at our table? Should she not be with the other vendors?" The entire table went silent, and Richard Morrison looked mortified by his daughter's behavior. I calmly explained that I was there to help with their technology upgrade and was happy to celebrate their family milestone. But Stephanie was not satisfied with embarrassing me privately. She stood up, tapped her wine glass to get everyone's attention, and made what she thought would be a gracious speech, thanking everyone for attending, especially our service providers who made time in their busy work schedules to join us tonight. The emphasis she put on service providers while looking directly at me made her intentions crystal clear. The room fell uncomfortably quiet. Other guests looked away, clearly embarrassed by her behavior. Alexander, her fiancé, looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. Even her parents, Richard and Patricia Morrison, seemed shocked by their daughter's public display of rudeness. But Stephanie seemed oblivious to the reaction she was getting, apparently thinking she had successfully put me in my place. Things escalated when Alexander quietly approached me to apologize for his fiancé's behavior. "She does not mean to be rude," he said, though his tone suggested he was not entirely convinced of that himself. I replied honestly, "Actually, I think she means exactly what she is saying." Unfortunately, Stephanie overheard this exchange and decided to confront me directly. "Excuse me," she said, marching over with fire in her eyes. "Are you talking about me? Just because you work for my father does not give you the right to criticize me or discuss my behavior with other people. This is exactly what is wrong with employees today. No respect for boundaries or knowing your place." The situation was spinning completely out of control. Other guests were starting to stare, and I could see Richard Morrison preparing to intervene before his daughter caused permanent damage to important business relationships. But Alexander had apparently reached his breaking point with Stephanie's behavior. He stepped forward and said firmly, "Stephanie, that is enough. This is inappropriate and you need to stop right now." Then he turned to me with genuine concern in his voice and asked, "Lucy, I sincerely apologize for her behavior. Can you please tell me what exactly your role is in Morrison's project?" Richard started to answer for me, saying, "Alexander, Lucy is actually..." But I held up my hand to stop him. I had endured enough humiliation for one evening, and it was time to set the record straight myself. The entire room seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. Conversations died down, and all eyes turned toward our little drama unfolding at the head table. Stephanie was still smirking, apparently confident that Alexander was about to learn just how insignificant I really was. I stood up slowly, looked Alexander directly in the eyes, then shifted my gaze to Stephanie. The moment had finally arrived to reveal exactly who she had been insulting all evening. "So, Lucy," Alexander said, his voice carrying clearly across the now silent room, "what do you do exactly?" I looked directly at him, then at Stephanie, and said one word, CEO. The silence that followed was so complete you could have heard a pin drop. For a full 5 seconds, nobody moved or spoke. Then Alexander blinked and said, I am sorry, what? I am the CEO of Tech Solutions, Inc., I said calmly. Your future father-in-law's company has been our client for 6 months. Stephanie's face underwent a transformation that was almost comical to watch. Her smug expression crumbled into confusion, then horror as the implications of what I had just said began to sink in. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. Alexander's jaw dropped. Wait, Tech Solutions, Inc., the company that just landed the IBM contract. He was clearly familiar with my company's reputation in the technology sector. Richard Morrison closed his eyes and took a deep breath, obviously realizing that a public relations disaster was unfolding right in front of his most important business contacts. Patricia Morrison went pale and gripped her husband's arm. The whispers started immediately. Guests began pulling out their phones, frantically Googling my name and company. Within minutes, information was spreading around the room like wildfire. Someone found the Forbes article that had featured me in their 30 under 30 tech entrepreneurs list. Another guest discovered our annual revenue figures and was shocked to learn that my company was actually worth more than Morrison Industries. The social dynamics in the room shifted dramatically as people realized they had been witnessing Stephanie insult not some lowly employee, but a successful CEO who was actually Morrison's business partner, not his subordinate. Guests who had been ignoring me all evening suddenly wanted to introduce themselves and discuss potential business opportunities. Stephanie was desperately trying to backtrack. Oh my God, I had no idea. I thought you were just, she stammered, but I cut her off. Just admin? Yes, you made that very clear, I said evenly. The panic in Stephanie's eyes was unmistakable as she looked desperately at her parents for help. But Richard and Patricia were dealing with their own crisis, realizing that their daughter had just publicly humiliated a business partner whose company was critical to their future success. Richard pulled me aside, his voice urgent but quiet. Lucy, please do not let this affect our partnership. Stephanie is young and sometimes speaks without thinking. Richard, I replied, I have always maintained professional standards regardless of personal circumstances. The question is whether your family can do the same moving forward. The contract details made the situation even more complicated for the Morrison family. Tech Solutions was in the process of implementing an entirely new digital infrastructure for Morrison Industries, everything from updating their manufacturing systems to creating custom software for inventory management. Without our company, Morrison would lose the competitive edge they desperately needed to stay relevant in their market. Meanwhile, other guests were approaching me with newfound respect and interest. Business cards were being exchanged, and I found myself discussing potential partnerships with people who had completely ignored me just minutes earlier. The contrast was striking and not lost on anyone in the room. Alexander pulled me aside for a private conversation, and what he told me was perhaps the most satisfying part of the entire evening. Lucy, I had no idea who you were, and I am absolutely mortified by Stephanie's behavior tonight. To be completely honest, I have been seeing red flags in our relationship for months, but tonight was the final straw. I cannot marry someone who treats people this way. That is between you and Stephanie, I replied diplomatically. But I will say this character shows most clearly when people think no one important is watching. Stephanie overheard enough of our conversation to realize her engagement was in serious jeopardy. She approached us with tears in her eyes, clearly desperate to salvage the situation. I am so sorry. I was just nervous about the party and had too much to drink. I did not mean any of those things I said. I looked at her calmly and said, "Your apology is noted, Stephanie, but your behavior tonight spoke volumes about who you really are. Alcohol does not create character flaws, it just reveals them." The final nail in the coffin came when Richard approached me again, this time asking directly what it would take to make things right. I appreciated his straightforward approach and gave him an equally direct answer. "Nothing," I said. "This was personal behavior, not business. Our contract stands as long as professional standards are maintained going forward. However, I will not tolerate disrespect from anyone regardless of family connections. I think we understand each other." The immediate aftermath was even more dramatic than I could have imagined. Alexander did not wait until the next day, or even until they got home. He broke off the engagement publicly, right there at the party in front of all their friends and family. The conversation was brief, but devastating. He told Stephanie that her behavior had shown him a side of her character that he could not accept, and that he could not marry someone who would treat others with such cruelty and disrespect. Stephanie's reaction was a complete meltdown. She screamed about how I had ruined her life, and how some people cannot handle being put in their place. She accused me of deliberately deceiving everyone about my identity and claimed that I had somehow manipulated Alexander into ending their relationship. The scene was so intense that security had to escort her out of the country club. The next week brought serious business conversations. Richard Morrison called an emergency meeting, clearly worried that I might cancel our contract in retaliation for his daughter's behavior. I reassured him that I had no intention of letting personal drama interfere with professional commitments, but I also established new boundaries. There would be no more family social events where I might encounter Stephanie, and all future interactions would be strictly business. The story spread through the local business community like wildfire. Social media posts about "entitled rich girl gets instant karma" appeared across multiple platforms, though I made sure never to comment publicly on the situation. Stephanie eventually deleted all her social media accounts after the backlash became too overwhelming to handle. Alexander followed up with a handwritten letter of apology thanking me for opening his eyes to Stephanie's true character. He revealed that she had been pressuring him to quit his job and join her father's company, instead promising an easier path to wealth and status. "I was about to marry someone who would have destroyed both my career and my self-respect," he wrote. The professional recognition that followed was unexpected, but welcome. The story attracted positive attention to my leadership philosophy and hands-on management style. Forbes magazine did a follow-up article titled "The CEO Who Stays Close to the Front Lines," which brought in 3 new major clients within a month. Stephanie's life took a decidedly different trajectory. She became a social pariah among her wealthy circle of friends, with many people unwilling to associate with someone who had shown such poor character in public. Her parents finally forced to confront their daughter's behavior, cut her allowance, and insisted she find actual employment. The transition from pampered socialite to working person proved extremely difficult for someone who had never faced real consequences before. The Morrison family dynamics changed significantly as well. Patricia Morrison personally apologized to me, admitting that they had failed as parents in teaching Stephanie proper values and respect for others. Richard, meanwhile, seemed to appreciate my professionalism throughout the entire crisis, and our business relationship actually strengthened due to the mutual respect we had developed. 6 months later, I received an unexpected wedding invitation from Alexander. He had met a doctor who shared his values about hard work and treating people with dignity regardless of their position in life. The wedding was beautiful, and notably, Stephanie was not invited. She did show up uninvited, causing a security incident that required police intervention, but I handled the situation gracefully and helped ensure the day remained special for the couple. The long-term impact on my business exceeded all expectations. Tech solutions expanded internationally, and I became a sought-after speaker on authentic leadership and company culture. Business schools began using my story as a case study in staying true to your values while building successful organizations. Despite all the growth and recognition, I maintained the same office setup and management philosophy that had served me so well. My personal life improved as well. Dating became easier once I learned to be more upfront about my professional success, rather than downplaying it to make others comfortable. I eventually met someone who admired my achievements rather than being threatened by them, and we built a relationship based on mutual respect and support. 1 year after that engagement party, my company's revenue had doubled. I was featured on the cover of Business Weekly magazine, and I was invited to speak at Harvard Business School about entrepreneurship and leadership. Throughout all these achievements, I continued to sit at the same desk in our open office, remaining accessible to every employee and maintaining the culture that had made our success possible. The most important lesson I learned was about the power of authentic behavior and treating everyone with respect regardless of their perceived status or position. Stephanie's downfall was not caused by my revelation about being CEO. It was caused by her own choice to judge and mistreat someone based on superficial assumptions. Character reveals itself most clearly in how we treat people we think are beneath us. And that night at the engagement party, everyone in the room learned exactly what kind of person Stephanie really was. The truth has a way of coming out eventually, and when it does, the people who have built their lives on treating others poorly find themselves standing alone. They say you should dress for the job you want, but I learned that night that it is better to be underestimated than overestimated. When you let your work speak louder than your wardrobe, you discover who people really are beneath their polished surfaces. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth. Have you ever been in a situation where someone completely underestimated you based on your appearance or perceived position? How did you handle it and what was the outcome? Share your story in the comments below because I would love to hear how you dealt with people who judged you unfairly. If this story resonated with you and reminded you that success comes in many forms, smash that like button and let me know. Do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up for yourself and the importance of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their title or status. Please share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that you should never judge someone based on first impressions or assumptions about their background. Thank you for watching and listening to my story, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others perceive you, but by how you choose to treat the people around you. Stay authentic, stay humble, and keep working hard toward your goals.